Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this get-together, we'll be taking a look at the magnificent mystery we call music. We'll consider a number of ideas that I hope you'll find fascinating. Ideas about how music's ability to impact us emotionally affects us as a culture, as individuals, and how, after thousands of years of contemplation, study, and research, philosophers and scientists can tell us how our bodies and brains react to music, but they're unable to explain why. Most of us in the guitar business, and if I had a guess, I'd say it's many, many thousands, became involved, or maybe more accurately, were drawn to it because of our love for the guitar. Growing up in the 60s, every other home in our neighborhood had a garage or basement that seemed to come fully equipped with a band. And every one of them believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were destined to become the next Beatles or Stones or whoever. And even at this very tender age, the commitment, the dedication was driven by a passion that was just all-consuming. For many of us, though, there lay ahead a moment of reckoning. And personally, this arrived in November 1978, when it became clear, undeniably clear, that I simply didn't have the talent and probably the temperament at the time to achieve the goals I'd set. And as you might imagine, after decades of dreaming and planning, this was an incredibly sobering moment. And yet, because it was based on some very deep and very honest soul-searching, somehow it made it easier and then ultimately thrilling to transition to a career in the guitar industry, an industry I've grown to love dearly. In the process, music became a source of pure pleasure. I've never stopped playing or dreaming, and to this day, learning a new song or figuring out some challenging riff generates that same indescribable excitement I felt at just 10 years old, a feeling I can't imagine living without. As a 43-year veteran now of this wonderful industry, I've been witness to and participated in countless discussions about the guitar and the power of music with colleagues, men and women traveling the same career path and driven by the same love for the guitar. Curiously, though, none of these discussions answered the question, why? Why has music had such a profound effect on us? We talked about that euphoric rush from deciphering some elusive riff, the sheer joy that comes with expressing yourself creatively and emotionally through the guitar, and that mystical connection that occurs between a player and the audience, what might be described as sonic clairvoyance. Debates raged on. Who was better, the Beatles or the Stones? Is hip-hop on a par with Beethoven? Did punk and grunge take us back to our roots, to the raw emotion that rock and roll was founded on? Or did it degrade the efforts of musicians trying to refine their craft? And more recently, has American Idol proven to be a blessing for the music community, or is it some sort of hideous perversion of the artist development process that gave us greats like Ray Charles, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, and countless others in every style of music? These debates, these discussions, were motivated by such deeply personal feelings that we could never settle on a definitive answer. We tried to imagine what our favorite films would be like without music. Could those moments of tenderness or fear ever be as intense without the help of music to guide our emotions? We were amazed, and I mean truly amazed, at the difference between our memories of songs before and after the video age. Before MTV, music was the soundtrack to our own personal life experience. The mention of Game of Love causes memories of my entire 7th grade summer to come flooding back into my head with just the most incredible intensity. Struggling to become a better guitar player, parties, days at the beach, and of course, images of that beautiful young girl who held my heart in her hands. Music video came along, and presented us with pre-packaged memories, told us how to feel and what to think, and for many, robbed them of one of music's most wonderful gifts. And please understand, it's not for one instant being suggested that musicians stop making videos. They become a legitimate art form, and some would argue indispensable in creating awareness. But it is being suggested that by eliminating our own personal interpretation of the music based on individual character and life experience, somehow it creates a distance. It diminishes the ultimate connection between the heart and soul of an artist and the listener. Gradually, business and the media learned that it was easier and in many cases more effective to create brand identity through the seductive power of iconic rock songs rather than simply extolling the merits of their product. And for many, this was just one more example of artists selling out, while for others, it was the just and proper reward for creative genius. As a history buff, I learned that from the very first gathering of human beings into small tribes to the largest, most sophisticated modern industrial state, music has been employed to engender patriotism, to unite the population behind the common cause. And all throughout history, wildly conflicting activities have harnessed the power of music. Religious movements created music that inspired people to devote their entire lives to faith, while military campaigns used it to summon up the necessary courage in warriors marching to certain death, what Abraham Lincoln would later describe as the last full measure of devotion. Schools have their fight songs. Modern corporations have leveraged music to ignite team spirit among the salespeople. And thousands of years ago, the great philosophers had already weighed in on the power of music, believing that musical ability was a clear indication of creative problem solving, the ability to lead and to govern. These are just a handful of the ideas that have received constant and serious consideration. And again, they address the effect, not the why. Most of life's experiences stimulate some sort of emotional response. The passing of a loved one, the birth of a child, the acquisition or loss of a prized possession can all create intense joy, sadness, or regret. And the reason, the why for the particular response is clear. There's nothing confusing as to why someone feels happy when they're promoted or sad when they lose something dear to them. But music is different, and remarkably so when you consider what it is in a physical context. A player strums an acoustic guitar, causing the strings to set the top in motion. This movement creates waves in the air, alternating groups of compressed and relaxed molecules. These molecules roll out in waves across the auditorium and bounce off that tiny membrane within the listener's ear. The stimulus is transmitted to the brain, and in just moments, several thousand people find themselves overcome with sadness or happiness. Grown men are driven to tears or to their feet dancing, unable to sit still. Why? How is it possible? How is it possible for a steel string attached to a wooden box to convey a musician's deepest, most heartfelt feelings, send them through the air to a listener, and elicit such an intense range of emotion? Why does D major sound happy and D minor sad? And all of this is even more remarkable when you realize that our Western scale is made up of only 12 notes. 12 notes that, through the power of relentless individual creativity, have given us everything. Everything from Mozart to Glenn Miller, John Lee Hooker to Elvis, Gershwin to Dylan, the Beatles to hip-hop, the blues, folk, country, pop, punk, disco, grunge, jazz, metal, everything since and everything in between. 12 notes, the language of music, arranged to express ideas and feelings that cannot be accomplished by any other means. 12 notes that slam our senses without any need for interpretation. How is it possible that Pete Townsend, Segovia, and Dylan can all play the same instrument to such astonishingly different effect? What is it that draws one listener to Stevie Ray Vaughan, another to Metallica, and yet another to Beethoven? The last and possibly most thought-provoking question: why is it? Why is it that one person can become emotionally overcome by music and another person feels nothing? Are some of us simply more primal in our emotions, or others more pragmatic? I suppose it's a bit like trying to explain love. For many of us, music, like love, is a force, a virtue that makes life worth living, life enriched in ways that defy understanding. And so maybe it's best that we simply appreciate the countless ways that music enhances our lives and concern ourselves a bit less with the why. And whenever possible, to nurture and support this magnificent mystery that makes all of our lives a little bit better. Once again, I'm Greg Bennett with Franklin Strapp. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. I'll see you soon.